We are ready for mainstream acceptance. And we'll get that up as David joins us now.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, David. Welcome. I am going to turn it over to you right now. Or in just a minute.
Yeah.
Get all set up here. So great to have you. Oh, we have the poll results here. So we have 47% say yes, mainstream acceptance, 19% say no, and 33% are lacking in awareness. So you are going to educate us right now.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect setup. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. And all right. Cool. Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And that was a perfect poll to set this up. Definitely what that poll illustrates is there's just a huge education gap still in the culture. We are living through a psychedelic renaissance, and many medicines and psychedelic-assisted therapies are getting more and more traction. But there's just still, and the culture is destigmatizing, but there's still obviously further to go. So at Dr. Bronner's, well, just personally, my own history, I've experienced in my own life the power of psychedelic medicine in helping me connect with the transcendent ground of love and light at the heart of existence, and realize that my granddad, Dr. Bronner, was 100% right. All the faith traditions are pointing at this transcendent ground, and even with all the suffering and absurdity and tragedy in life, that is in fact the truth, and really helped me sort out my stuff, and dedicate my life to a life of service. And I've seen how powerful these medicines are for friends and family. And in particular, what's really getting traction, and I'm showing here our Heal Soul label. So in the second half of last year, we ran what we call our Heal Soul campaign, and we changed our core labels to talk all about psychedelic-assisted therapy and medicines, and primarily in the therapeutic frame. What I was just talking about was a more spiritual experience, but that's not generally your crossover message. Really what, while we can, that's happening, and, ayahuasca's coming in and healing hearts and minds and souls. What's really compelling to the naive audience are the clinical trials that are happening at Johns Hopkins, NYU, and UCLA, and other places using psilocybin-assisted therapy and MDMA-assisted therapy. And psilocybin, just to educate what psilocybin is, it's the active ingredient in magic, quote unquote, magic mushrooms. Mushrooms have a long history, millennia, with the Mazatec tribe in Mexico. I've been using mushrooms for healing ceremony for thousands of years. And Maria Sabina was who introduced psychedelic mushrooms to Gordon Wasson, and then to the larger culture, Western culture generally. And so anyway, so psilocybin has been shown in clinical trials to be just incredibly effective for people struggling with treatment-resistant depression, with debilitating end-of-life anxiety, with addiction, substance use disorders of all kinds, alcoholism, smoking cessation, crack cocaine. And Michael Pollan, and you'll see up here, we've got a really good quote from Michael Pollan, who's just a kind of perfect ambassador and just like a good quote of his, just talking about in just kind of layman's terms what's going on. And the quote here is, when you're depressed, you're telling yourself a story that you're worthless, you're not worthy of love, that life will not get better. With psychedelic therapy, you often experience the dissolution of self or ego. This can free us from those destructive stories and offer in their place a fresh perspective on our lives. People realize that they needn't be trapped in those stories, and that they may actually be able to write some new stories about themselves. That, I think, is what's liberating about the experience. And Michael wrote an amazing book called How to Change Your Mind. Highly recommend reading. He also wrote a shorter article that's also a great introduction called "The Trip Treatment," cover story for the New Yorker like 5 years ago. But just at the kind of neurological level, at the brain level, it's, what appears to be happening with psilocybin and the classic psychedelics, and that would include LSD and DMT, is that what's called the default mode network, which kind of corresponds to ego function, to executive function in the brain. It corresponds to like kind of linear time and logic and just making sure you're on top of your stuff, and just all the anxieties and just just dealing with life and all that. But it's also kind of just completely takes for granted the miracle of life around us all the time, and it's just kind of like dismisses all that. It's just very kind of goal task oriented. And as we all know, we can get into obsessive thought loops and through traumas in our lives, early childhood, and or just genetic disorders. People can have just be really trapped in self-destructive patterns of thought and behavior. And what psychedelic therapy seems to be able to do is like break those patterns, and it's like hitting reset, and you have this like incredible experience of just kind of entering the now, like that, just shutting down that kind of ego consciousness. And they've done brain scan imaging and deep experienced meditators in deep meditative states. There's commonality with peak psychedelic experience with what's happening within the brain, but it corresponds to these just much more just incredible non-ordinary states of consciousness where just incredible healing and love and it can be experienced and a new perspective gained. So these epidemics of trauma, of PTSD, of depression, of end-of-life anxiety, like the way we die in our culture is, we just kind of, it's obviously not good. We're oftentimes just parking our elderly in convalescent homes, and we're getting better with palliative care on the physical side, the physical pain, but psychological pain, not so much. And psilocybin is just showing incredible potential for people who are facing that debilitating end of life anxiety to reconcile to the larger reality and a reality process we're all part of, and where death is just part of it, and it's way bigger, and we're all it's just really healing to encounter that power and that love, and live out the rest of your days, with a much higher quality of life and appreciating your family and your loved ones. So anyway, so what we did here in NMDMA, just I'm on the board of MAPS, a Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, and MDMA is also known as ecstasy when used in a therapeutic setting as an adjunct to therapy. And just in all cases here, there's careful preparation, facilitation, and integration. This is very intentional work. The therapeutic container is in some ways the Western analog of the indigenous ceremonial container. In indigenous cultures, you never ever take medicine outside that container, like the way the 60s and how LSD and a lot of these psychedelics were taken just kind of all over the place, and a lot of times casually, and personally speaking, I mean, that can be really rewarding. You can be out in the forest or at home, but it can also go sideways if you're just around a lot of people, you haven't put a lot of intention in, and your environment's not controlled. It's called set and setting, your internal set and your external environment. If it's not optimized, it can just go sideways and or just be relatively superficial. But with proper intention and preparation, and then a good facilitator holding the space, allowing you to really release in your experience, just incredible results can be had. And we talk all about this on the label. And we also were in support of some key political campaigns. So in Oregon, Measure 109, which would legalize psilocybin therapy, provide a legal framework for mushroom cultivation and preparation and standardization of medicine, and then to be administered in supervised licensed facilities with licensed facilitators. So that program is going to take 2 years to implement. And we're just very thankful with the new administration. We were counting that the feds are not going to be interfering with it. And basically what Measure 109 does is take what's happening with these clinical trials, and psilocybin and MDMA assisted therapy are moving through FDA approval process. And I realized I didn't talk about MDMA. So MDMA is really great for PTSD, for treatment resistant post-traumatic stress disorder, people suffering these debilitating, obviously in our culture, depression, mental health illness generally is not being adequately treated by standard Western pharma and therapeutic approaches. And FDA recognizing this has given breakthrough status to both psilocybin therapy and MDMA therapy. And MDMA for PTSD, what it seems to do is tamp down the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, and allow extremely traumatic events to be processed. And it's still, very difficult work that people go through, but they're able to do it without re-traumatizing themselves and be able to accept and move forward with their lives and consolidate these memories in a more normal memory structure where it's not this like viscerally re-traumatizing every time you get remotely close to that memory. So an MDMA is going to move into the culture first via FDA approval process. But what we did in Oregon is like, well, psilocybin but MDMA is only going to be available via FDA approval for PTSD. And similarly, psilocybin via FDA approval will only be available for treatment-resistant depression or major depressive disorder. And everyone else who doesn't have these kind of narrow qualifying diagnoses are not going to be able to access via that path. So what was important about Oregon is that we're all struggling in life. We're all on the spectrum of everything, and we can all use the benefit of these medicines. And the psilocybin measure basically makes psilocybin therapy available to all adults who can safely benefit. There are contraindications, primarily schizophrenia, that preclude someone from accessing this medicine, but for pretty much all other adults, it can be safely accessed and just have such incredible results. And the measure really pays attention to optimizing proper preparation, proper set and setting, proper integration. And the other point about this is that we also support decriminalized nature and as a movement, just decriminalizing plant medicines. We can all grow them in our backyard. This is our right. There's no one should be going to jail for healing themselves naturally. But for most of the culture, especially the naive, skeptical majority of people, if we don't have safe, well-structured access point, like a well-designed therapeutic program, people are not going to avail themselves of this life-saving, life-changing therapy. Just decriminalizing, I guess, like to say, it's like for my mom, I can't just say, "Hey, mom, we just decriminalized mushrooms. Here's some mushrooms." That's not going to be comfortable for her, and we need to have a well-structured model and program, and just to be, and it's not. And then when I say therapeutic, it's not like just kind of like a Freudian therapy office. I mean, these can be very more shamanic, more let's say new agey, kind of deals. Can be retreat centers in nature. But the importance is that therapeutic container is key, how do you say, controlling the environmental factors that can be distracting. And yeah, so anyways, also in Oregon was Measure 110. This is broad-based decriminalization in favor of treatment, that no one, like, recognizing that addiction is not a crime and doesn't help people to treat them by throwing them in jail any more than a alcoholic relative. We would call the cops and have them arrested. We would get them treatment. So just like with all drugs, that should be our policy, and get people the help they need without ruining their lives and their families further. And especially the way the drug war has been weaponized against communities of color. Whites and people of color will use drugs at the exact same rates, but especially Black males are like 4 to 8 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated. The US has less than the world's population, but almost 25% of the prison population, in large or in significant part because of the drug war. And we just need to really shift how we deal with addiction to a much more compassionate and rational approach. And Portugal has really blazed the path and has shown for 20 years how you do this. They had a huge opiate epidemic 20 years ago and realized arresting addicts wasn't helping anybody. So huge fundamental shifts happening. And we just wanted to really kind of put our organization and brand in support, educate the public. We publish a lot on our blogs, videos. Like our director PR made a series of great videos. Our content editor was posting great blogs, and just we were partnered with 6 key organizations, and we really wanted to pump them up and their stories. So yes, I'm 109. So I just this is Tom and Sheree Eckert, the husband-wife therapist team that were the strategic genius behind the measure. Sheree tragically died recently on the last day of Hanukkah by sleeping by the side of her beloved Tom, and had lived to see her dream come true. So thank you, Sheree. And just incredible healing. Both of them have worked very closely with domestic violence, and both victims and perpetrators really understand the cycles of trauma ricocheting down to generations and that we inflict on each other, and just how powerful psilocybin as a tool can be to break those cycles and help people really heal it up and exorcise the demons that got them. And then MAPS is as I said, we're moving MDMA through treatment through FDA approval process as a primary project, but MAPS is kind of the global psychedelic org, kind of touching pretty much every aspect of the movement. So the FDA, that's a strategy to integrate psychedelic medicine more generally. So, and in that project, veteran groups are crucial. Veterans, obviously a highly traumatized population, just suffering, greatly. And, more vets have taken their lives by suicide than have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. And pictured here is Jesse Gould, top right. He's a former Army Ranger in a Heroic Hearts project, send traumatized vets in cohorts down to Peru to drink ayahuasca in ceremony. And there's like careful preparation and integration and just incredible results. And then bottom right here is Marcus and Amber Capone, husband and wife. Marcus was former SEAL Team 6. There's just so much trauma in, especially the special forces community, that's bearing the brunt of modern warfare. And he was spinning, and Amber, in desperation, having tried everything, got him into ibogaine therapy in Mexico. And ibogaine is also like incredibly helpful for opiate addiction. It comes from an African root, iboga, the Bwiti religion in Gabon, actually passed down by the Pygmy. Pygmies passed on. They've been holding the iboga for who knows how long, and pass it on to various tribes in Central Africa. Very powerful psychedelic medicine, and has shown just incredible efficacy healing the trauma that Marcus and now over 200 fellow veterans have now availed themselves of the treatment. And they're just key allies in this. I mean, one, of course, veterans, first responders, marginalized groups who've experienced trauma. I mean, all these groups need medicine and healing. But veterans in particular are just such an effective ally here, especially in a divided country like we are in. Hopefully that's changing. But nonetheless, it's been remarkable that even with all the division, that psychedelic therapy has not gotten caught up in that division. And I think in large part because of the coalition that's been built, including a very strong veteran constituency. And then center bottom here, this is Sandor Ironrope. He's a Lakota elder, head of the Native American Church there in South Dakota, part of a National Council of Native American Church Leaders. And they formed an Indigenous Peyote Conservation Initiative, IPCI, that to protect peyote, which is under a lot of threat. It's basically an endangered species. It's over harvested, and really important as the psychedelic renaissance unfolds that we're cognizant of the impacts, especially on natural medicine, on peyote, ayahuasca, and iboga, and toad. No one should be using 5-MeO DMT from toads. It's just the toads are under dramatic threat. Peyote is kind of the same story, and nurseries are being built. There's progress being made, but we just definitely need to steer clear of peyote. There's other mescaline-containing cacti like San Pedro that are not in a state of endangerment, which are good for non-indigenous use. So just really important to kind of highlight the plant medicine traditions and to reciprocate as the psychedelic renaissance unfolds and honor the indigenous wisdom keepers and tradition holders who have held these medicines in such high reverence for so long, and that are now inspiring this psychedelic renaissance that we're benefiting from. And then Decriminalize Nature DC was a key campaign. We won with 76% of the vote in the Capitol, basically decriminalizing all plant medicines. Pictured here is Melissa Lavasani and her family. She was the leader of the effort. She was facing debilitating postpartum depression. Nothing was working, and a friend invited her to an ayahuasca ceremony, and she experienced really deep healing, some subsequent microdosing with mushrooms, and just really healed herself up. And she's high level in DC city government, and chose to step forward and lead this campaign. And just really amazing that we were able to win in the Capitol in that way, and kind of inform the national leadership at the same time. And then just showing just Heal Soul on the shelves. We definitely were thinking this was going to be a lot more controversial than it turned out being. As my brother and company president Mike Bronner said, our goal here was to communicate in a way our mom's church group could receive. And indeed, it just really, it was received incredibly well. We had no complaints from any retailer, obviously no natural retailer, but also no mass market retailer. And we're in pretty much all of them at this point. And just kind of shows how far the culture is moving. And then all of our social platforms, just kind of demonstrating how we were supporting, just some really amazing posts and likes. And we did a giveaway here of Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. And and then on our web store, we would kind of those 6 partner orgs for like the 2 months in the fall, I think October and November, we would give 10% to whatever organization someone would choose as they checked out. These are the videos made with each partner organization, and with an intro video that I did. And and this is the Shopify. I was just talking about how we were dedicating 10% of sales to partner orgs. And just some more illustrative posts. And more awesome posts. But just really amazing, and generated just so much media, earned media. Not just our Heal Soul campaign, but obviously in concert with the major political campaigns, but just incredible results. And I don't want to take credit for all this. We're just a small part of a larger movement, but just incredible press is happening for psychedelic-assisted therapy and medicines. And just a good graphic here of just all the reach and penetration. So we're just just really thankful to all of our retailer partners and customers, and just appreciating that all together, as we tell our own stories of healing. Just yesterday, I watched the Harvey Milk documentary on an amazing inauguration day and re-inauguration of hope. And Harvey Milk, for those who don't know, is kind of the gay Martin Luther King, just an amazing man who was shot and killed, but he led the charge against some gay bashing measures in California, and just, in the dark days of the gay trajectory. Not that there's not further to go, but just an amazing hero. And Yeah, I forgot exactly what I was make the point about that, but yeah, just well, I should say, yeah, watch the documentary. They also made a movie called Milk with Champagne, and which is good, but the actual documentary, The Times of Harvey Milk, and just meeting the man and understanding and feeling him is just incredible. Um, but anyways, yeah, so I guess I should stop. Hopefully I didn't go too long and get some questions.
You are perfect. Thank you so much. We do have questions coming in, and we have a few minutes to get to those. And we have some great questions coming in. So thank you for sharing all of that with us and raising our awareness. The first question I want to get to is from a retailer, natural products retailer, Valerie. She says, thanks for all that Dr. Bronner's is doing for this movement. This is exciting and so necessary. Besides buying and dynamically merchandising Dr. Bronner's in our stores, what can retailers do to support this effort?
Yeah, well, definitely through your social channels. If you want to highlight, say, like maps, or we've got the resources for the Heal Soul campaign. I should go figure out the URL, but I would say maps.org is a really good place, just as a kind of the central organ of the movement. And yeah, I mean, just any creative. If you want to reach out to us and do anything creative, we'd be happy to do something. But yeah, I mean, just through your social to your customers, talking about psychedelic assisted therapy, and maybe having a rhythm of whatever rhythm makes sense. In a month of social, you've got 3 posts talking about whatever cool breakthroughs are happening, and just kind of staying on top of what's happening in psychedelic renaissance, and maybe doing some in-store something. I'm going to check with our team if we're going to be doing Heal Soul again soon, hopefully. But really did appreciate the retailers who are making end caps and signage and really pumping it up, because I mean, you guys are really interfacing with a huge segment of the public. So yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, share with us at Whole Foods Magazine your efforts, and we continue to share with our readers on the retail side. So we definitely want to keep spreading the word. Another great question that came in from Kurcha: how will we keep the level of consideration for the BIPOC folks as the psychedelic revolution gains traction? As we've seen with the increase of cannabis use in the mainstream, that can often get lost. So how are you preparing for that on the consumer level?
yeah. So it's a great question, and part of our campaign, we made sure to really highlight IPCI and on the indigenous front, the indigenous peyote tradition in this country, and make sure people really connected and understood what that's about. And then, yeah, and as a movement, I guess on the question to the larger movement, yeah, there's definitely a concern of, the way cannabis kind of lost healing and wellness. It's just, became kind of a corporate takeover, and cannabis is not so positioned in that space. And I think by and large, we really want to make sure psychedelics stay in that healing therapeutic frame. It doesn't become this kind of recreational, whatever kind of vibration. And in Oregon, so for example, we made sure that the licenses can be there can be like no more than 1 license per grower license, or 1 grow how do you say, project per license, and those grow projects are circumscribed, so you can't have these huge corporate grows like has happened with cannabis. There's no branding and marketing of medicine, so kind of take that out of the equation. And so trying to do some kind of how do you say, preemptive moves like that. And then decriminalize nature. I mean, part their ethos is that these are natural medicines, and we should be able to grow them and give them to each other and sit for each other, and we don't have to go to a FDA medical pharma deal to get healed. And and that's a deep truth. So the decriminalized nature movement is that's a powerful reason to support them. And yeah, and then I would say that there is just within the FDA pharma realm, that like on maps, like this is a big part of what we're doing, and we're figuring out how we can sponsor indigent, BIPOC populations, and make sure everyone who can benefit from the healing can access the healing. making sure there's, insurance and coverage and these kind of things. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And as I said, we'll continue to spread the word, keep us informed, and we really appreciate, your upping our awareness here. So thank you very much.